Morning, good morning. Are we on? Oh, I forgot to update that. Oh well. How's everybody doing? Just throwing the current stream up on the website. Also for my double checking purposes, see if my sound's on. It is. Cool. Cool. So I was running around getting stuff done this morning, so we're like on time and ready to roll. I was thinking about talking about something I call piano style that I picked up. I picked up the term from Eric Johnson, but basically you play all the strings at once by plucking with all of your fingers in more of a chord style. I know I've talked in the past, I believe, about like the pinch pluck, where you're just pinching on two strings. But for this style, you actually play with the majority of your fingers on all the strings. So it's kind of like a strum, but it gives you some extra options that are really nice to have, and I think it's super useful. Um, so I thought we would talk about that today. If you have any questions, as always, jump in the chat. Let me know. And yeah, we'll get going. So for this style, you're going to be using 3 fingers and a thumb. And so you put one finger on each string, the thumb goes above the G string, and then the rest of your fingers go on the bottom side of the other strings. And so your thumb goes down and your other fingers go up. And the idea is to pluck everything at once by pinching with all of your fingers towards your thumb and your thumb down towards all of your fingers. And the hardest bit about this is getting it like balanced. You can tend to strike one string a lot harder than the others. So spend a minute just kind of playing the open strings and see if you can get a nice balanced sound. I like trying to make this kind of a little bit warmer sounding, as opposed to like, you know, being really bright, but like clawing at it so much. Just kind of touching the strings, because for a lot of what I do, the style is more like a jazz thing. And I was thinking kind of the next step we could talk about, once we've got this dialed in, is like a bossa nova sort of pattern kind of a thing. This works super well for that. Okay. Let's see. What can we do? Let's play, just so we can be a little bit more jazzy. You can play the open strings if you want. If you're just getting the pinch thing going on, that's cool. You could play this C6 that we talked about last week, or try this one here, which is your peace sign fingers on the G string and the C string on the 5th fret, and then your leftover fingers go on the 7th fret between. So it's 5, 7, 5, 7. So nice jazzy C6 chord, and try doing the pinch on that. And depending on your nails, you might get a different sound. Like I'm noticing that I can really hear my one finger uh, that's not filed because I keep. If you watch my video on nail filing, I keep these fingernails long, but my ring finger I don't. And so right now I can hear it's kind of beat up, and when I pluck it, it's kind of got a crappy thin sound, so it's not super good. But that's the main trick is getting everything to balance from one string to the next, and you can do that by kind of just focusing in on one finger, and for the most part, you're going to want to like bring the rest of the fingers up to volume unless there's one that's really obnoxiously jumping out of the top of the chord volume wise, in which case you want to figure out why that's happening. It could be a fingernail thing oftentimes, but otherwise, if you've got like kind of one side or the sound is lopsided volume wise, you can try and like lean more on that side. Right, I could dig into like the G string a little bit more, or I could try and hit the two middle strings a little harder. It's you try and balance it so that it's as even as possible. How's it going, Benjamin? Thanks for tuning in, man. So one of the great benefits of this piano style, it's piano style because a piano player can play all the notes at the same time, right? When you strum on your ukulele, you're naturally rolling through the notes at a very fast speed, but you're actually playing them staggered, right? Boop, boop, boop. But with the piano, you can actually play everything at the same time. And so by playing with this style where you're pinching with all of your fingers on every string, you're more or less playing all the notes at the exact same time like a piano player would. So it kind of has a little bit more of a straightforward sound to it. Like you play a piano, it's a very perfect sound. It's just bomb and it does its thing. That's sort of what this recreates on the ukulele. Is everything just drops right into place at the same time. So it's kind of a cool texture from that point. The other thing it's really great at is your resting point for piano style is having your fingers on the strings. Right? If you want to play, you got to get your fingers right back to where you're going quickly. So you want your resting place to be when you're not playing to be on the strings. So if you pluck and then you return your fingers to the strings as quick as possible, it becomes a mute. So if I'm playing, as opposed to just letting it ring, if I'm muting, it's a lot more interesting. And all I'm doing is I'm using my right hand. And a lot of times when you're strumming and you're muting with the right hand, it's not as effective. It doesn't it's more out of the way. It's more effort than it's worth to try and mute with your hand or by stopping something, or just, it's a trick to really make that useful. So a lot of times people just end up muting with their left hand. So if you were doing the same thing when strumming, you would do it with the left hand. But because you're touching all the strings and you can do a mute really easy, it's like way cleaner. It's more kind of a sophisticated sound that this is really super great at. Okay, so let's try some sort of a pattern. Let's try that one. Actually, let's start a little bit quicker. We'll play it two different ways. We'll play without trying to do the mute thing, where we're just gonna let everything ring as long as possible. So like, right? See if you can get a little bit of a rhythm going. And this is not sophisticated yet, but you're just trying to get the mechanics happening. Remember, the same chord is same as the open strings, so play whatever one is going to be less distracting while you're focusing on this hand. Now let's try playing with a mute in between, so that the notes ring out a little bit shorter. same thing. We're just changing the ending of where the chord goes to. Right? So by itself, it's just really a tight, nice sound. It has tons and tons and tons of uses. It's a super useful thing. Strumming's great, but it inherently has some drawbacks. So if you were to get into a little bit more of a kind of interesting pattern, try something like that. And you can scrub just by moving the chord down. Right? Very simple. Sounds very sophisticated. So that is something that I would try and implement that on any, like, especially jazz songs. If you know any jazz songs, that can be really pretty cool, because a lot of times we're, da 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 da. However the hell it goes, I don't know that song super well off the top of my head. But if you were to play that with piano style, it has a different texture. Do 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 do. It's not the D7. What does it go to? Right? It just, having those different paintbrushes in your toolbox is really super important, and it's super useful, especially something like jazz where you're intentionally keeping the rhythm as simple as possible. Yeah. So, what I think kind of the next step is that I would like to share with you folks is where you're breaking up the thumb and the other fingers. No, I was going to say the index finger. It's not the index finger. It's a big index finger with everything stuck together. We're going to break up what we're doing here, and the thumb is going to play separate from the fingers. So try going thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. Same chord if you want. Or you could add the mutes. And this is going to sound probably a little more natural on a low G ukulele, but it should work on any. Let's see if I'm actually correct. It'll be fine. It sounds different because it's a different tuning, but it will be fine. Put that there. Yeah, so making your thumb and your fingers independent. You can practice this just by going back and forth. You can create different patterns. So that would just be back and forth. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. You could go like double thumb, double fingers. Just to get used to the motion of splitting it up. Right? I'm not going to claim I'm any kind of genius at this, but by having the ability to kind of toggle back and forth, you can get more interesting different textures. Okay, so let's try the bossa nova thing. Jump right into it. It's gonna be right. That's the sound that we're used to hearing. The timing kind of changes as you go around, but basically the pattern is thumb, fingers, thumb, finger, thumb, thumb, fingers. Thumb, fingers, thumb, thumb, fingers. Okay, and then if you want to like bring it into kind of its own rhythmic thing, like a complete bit, you could actually do 3 on the thumb for kind of the second time around to give a little bit of variation. But this is really loose. I don't claim to know anything about bossa nova. I'm just trying to rip off some of the sounds that I hear in these different songs. That kind of my approximation, and it's easiest to do with this piano style. So I thought I would share it, but don't take this as the golden rule because I really don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. While we're at it, let's work on a tune. Kind of the main bossa nova tune I have um, been through the ringer learning. I actually had it memorized at one time, which was amazing. Wave. Let's see if I can find the link and what kind of a tab I've got going on here. Ha, I've got the chords right there for everybody to look at. So there's the sheet. It's crazy. It's like a mini week project to learn that, but it's super interesting because it has this sound. The very intro where you've got the D minor 7 and the G. Well, let me see if I can hack my way through playing it just to see if you've heard it or not, and if you haven't heard it, give you kind of an idea what it's sort of supposed to sound like. Um, so you start with the D minor G7 thing. So close your eyes. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh, I skipped the line. I'm sorry. Did I? No, I guess not. It just sounds funny to me. Da 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 da. Ba 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 ba. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da 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 da. So that's a terrible version, but having the chords that kind of make it sound legit is going to really make this be more interesting. Okay, so the D minor to G7, not is nothing super special about that. But when you start getting into the jazz chords, it starts becoming more interesting. So the first little bit is going to be the D major 7, So just a bar on the second fret with your ring finger on the fourth fret, and you can do the boom, chick, boom, boom, chick. So when you play the pattern is basically going to be, that's going to be like one whole measure. So you would go and just play that per chord. So if you're playing through the tune, it would be pretty much like the D major 7, and then the B flat diminished 7. And if you're going to be playing bossa nova, you really need to know this shape because it appears a couple of different places, and that's just your peace sign fingers. In this case, we're going to be on the third fret, but on the G and the E strings, and then your remaining fingers fill in the gaps one fret up. Because this chord, it actually repeats and recycles itself. So this chord, this B flat chord, when you go to the next voicing looks exactly the same. So these are all B flat diminished 7s. It sounds really crazy, but there's nothing at all special about it. It's just B flat diminished 7, B flat diminished 7, B flat diminished 7. So if you need to impress your friends, you can do that sort of thing, and that's really cool. We'll also use this shape for the flat 9s, which is also part of this song. So that first little bit, just try that, going from the D major 7 to the B flat diminished 7. So it'd be, that's all it is. It goes really quick, and especially with a song like this where there's a bunch of complicated chords, it can get out of hand very quickly. So we'll just take it little bits at a time. See if we can go through the A part, because that's the real super interesting one for myself, at least. So D major 7, and then B flat diminished, and then you go to A minor 7, which is the same as C6, which we learned just earlier, is this little guy up here. So what we very first started playing, that's a C6 or an A minor 7. So you could play this. You could also play the open strings. Okay? So just try those first 3 chords. D major 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then B flat diminished. And then the A minor 7. And then for the D7 flat 9, I know this is real crash course, but a lot of this stuff is built so that it leads into itself. And I'm sure it was written on guitar or piano or something, but on the ukulele, if you're kind of clever, you can figure out how to make things kind of flow nicely. And in this case, for the A minor 7, all you're going to do to get the D7 flat 9 is drop the not peace sign fingers down one fret. So now you're just back to a diminished 7 shape. So A minor 7, and then D7 flat 9. Clever little change. Right? Start from the top. The D major 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. B flat diminished. A minor 7. And then to the D7 flat 9. Just lovely, lovely, lovely. Just like, even if you were to play the chords one at a time, it's just, there's so much charm to the harmonies that they come up with. It's just far beyond my pay grade, but I love hearing the sounds. And then when you put the boom chick chick on top of it, then it really becomes kind of its own thing. And something that I'm finding myself wanting to do is I'll actually like do a double thumb leading into the next chord. So it would be something like, like on the 4 and um, it kind of just helps fill that long ringing space and sort of sets you up for the next chord. It also kind of implies like a fake walking bass line, which is kind of a cool thing for this style as well, especially when the note moves. If the note doesn't move from like the A minor 7 to the D7, it's a little bit not as interesting. But if I was to play like this A minor 7 and kind of like squeak a little bass movement in there, then it becomes a little bit more interesting. All right. So I don't want to necessarily walk you through the entire song. The chords are there. The chords are above the piece and also above the measure, obviously. But it's a fantastic bit of practice for changing chords if you're a little bit more advanced, and also for just kind of a sandbox for practicing that boom chick chick type of thing. Um, so yeah, that's basically the practical usage of piano style in an exercise would be the bossa nova boom chick chick sort of movement. So thumb, fingers, thumb, thumb, fingers. And if you wanted to, you don't have to separate the thumb and the fingers. You could just play it. And you could play everything just strict piano style. So for folks that are just tuning in, talking about instead of strumming down through the strings where you get kind of a prack rolling sound rolling through the notes, if you play with all of your fingers on the strings simultaneously, you pluck all the notes at the same time. And so this can get you a little bit more intricate, straightforward textures where you're plomping down all the notes at the same moment and just applying that to a bossa nova sort of pattern. You can split the thumb and the fingers and go thumb, fingers, thumb, thumb, fingers. So that's the kind of thing you can sit and play for like a week straight and just like sit deeper and deeper into the groove and the feel as your hand gets used to playing in that style. And it's really, really a pretty cool thing. Let's talk about another application or example of the piano style fingering kind of as a solution to a problem. A lot of times when you're playing something, you don't always have the option to strum well. So usually this happens when you're playing like three strings on the ukulele and you only want three strings and the last string you don't want to sound. You can mute. Like if I want to play a bit of G minor on the top three strings, it's basically just like a G7, but you move it up a fret and hop it up a set of strings. I can do several things. I could strum down with my thumb and come to rest on the bottom string. I can mute the bottom string so I can strum everything. But I get a pack sound in with the chord, which might not be desirable. But it's going to be hard if if for whatever reason I can't mute the leftover string, it's going to be hard to strum and get a strong rhythm while also avoiding that bottom string. It's like if you look at guitar chords. I remember learning to play a little bit of guitar and seeing the chords for the first time. There are X's on the chord boxes, and you're not supposed to play the strings. So, as a beginner would, you assume that you're supposed to like move the pick around the string that you're not supposed to play, but that's almost impossible to do. So what you're actually supposed to do is mute. But that might be handy in certain chord shapes, but it's not always useful. It's not always possible. There might be a reason you don't want to take the time, or you're not able to take the time to mute that bottom string, and it's going to hamper your rhythmic ability, which is where kind of another use of the piano style comes in. Is you play those three notes, you get all of them, you get a great timing with them because you're not rolling through them. You're getting a little bit of a a tighter timing, but you also don't have to even think about the string that you've got to mute. There's no muting involved, so you can totally throw that part of things out of the window. Okay, here's a cool change that people will recognize. Right, name that tune with just three chords. So it's a G minor played on the top three strings with a G7 kind of arrow triangle pointing that way shape. And then all you're going to do is you're going to split it by moving your two middle fingers higher up, one fret. This turns it into some sort of a dominant chord. And then you would just play 5th fret on the top three strings. That's an F. So G minor to, I guess that's like an E7, and then the F. It's a walk up. Wind Cries Mary, right? And after all the jacks are in their boxes, right? That kind of a thing. So it's possible to play that with just a thumb strum, but it's less practical than just plucking it with the piano style. And so in that case, I'm just leaving out my ring finger because I don't need that bottom string to be played. If I were to play it, I mean, it could be cool. For that chord, it's kind of weird. For that chord, it's really weird. And then for that chord, it's very natural. But I would rather just not play it at all. So I'm just going to leave my ring finger out. And I'm just playing thumb, index, middle finger. Right? And you did the same thing. I was figuring it out last night. You do the same thing on the three lower strings. And in this case, I probably wouldn't play strict thumb and fingers to string assignments. I wouldn't probably play it with just a finger pluck. I would probably move my thumb down so that I'm playing thumb, finger, even on the three bottom strings, just because it's more practical, and it's not hard to switch from the top set of strings to the lower set of strings. It's such a little movement that it's not really going to ever detract from your ability to make the switch. Right? Same thing in a different spot. And all I'm doing is just moving down to the lower bit of strings. So that is a really useful way to also implement that simultaneous piano style, because I don't need to worry about trying to strum around the string or to try and bother with muting the string, which is kind of humbug if you don't actually need to do that. So just pluck, pluck, pluck with all of your fingers. Something though that you kind of miss with that pinching style is you get everything. It's called piano style because with the piano you can plomp down all the notes at the same exact time. Bam. Whereas on ukulele, when you strum chord, bram, 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 or like rolling through the notes very quickly, but they're actually being hit at different times. If I were to slow it way down, right? That's actually what's happening. So when you play that piano style, you take away the attack for every single note, and it all just happens at the same time. And so you might sometimes want to, I want to play this, but I want it to sound like it's being strummed, right? And to get the benefits of the piano style with the strum sound, what you can do is you can roll down your fingers and separate them, even though you're still plucking everything with a finger. You can roll through the strings to create that strum separation a bit. So all I'm doing here is it's basically just a really fast picking pattern where I'm going thumb, index, middle, just rolling down the strings. You can do the same thing with, uh-oh, sneeze coming on. Oh no, it's gonna go away. If I'm playing a full chord, you can use all your fingers and go thumb and then roll your fingers. I don't normally do that style, so it's a little bit of thinking, but having that bram attack, it's a little bit of a different texture. But especially on partial chords, because if you really wanted that sound, that becomes more work than it's worth, and you might as well just strum it. But if you're doing something like the Wind Cries Mary thing, it's going to be hard to strum. You go back to a situation where the piano style is superior in that instance for that positioning on the fretboard, that just kind of this thing that's happening here. But if I still want that sound, I can get that separation by just rolling my fingers. And so you'd probably make sure you've got the actual piano technique down before you start trying to separate them. That's going to be, because that's like a very much finer bit of muscle motion when you try and separate things and make them happen at a different time, same but different kind of. It would serve you well to have that really dialed in, just the piano style by itself. Start with that. There's lots of different styles you can play with it. Bossa Nova is just the super obvious one. Any questions? That's kind of a lot of talking in a row. You got anything you're curious about or ways you can implement or use that, please throw them up in the chat somewhere. And I'll see if I can get those answered. There's no rules with the style of this. You can take any song you know. Doesn't have to be jazz, doesn't have to be bossa, doesn't have to be Wind Cries Mary. Just try it on something that you already play. Something else you can do is separate chords that you have that you're playing. Any chord that you hold down, you could play 3 and 3, 3 and 3, and that creates kind of a high low effect while also playing basically full harmony. So if I was to play a chord, you can't really do that with a strum. It's very clunky, but you could go 3, top 3 strings, bottom 3 strings. Just another option. I don't see any questions. So I guess it goes without saying that this piano style is only really a thing when you're using 3 notes at a time. When you're using 2 notes at a time, you just do a basic pinch like everybody talks about. Just a crab claw pinch. Index finger comes up, thumb goes down, right? But with the piano style, you can't really you can't put 3 fingers under that umbrella of just the crab claw pinch. It's basically the same motion, but no one really talks about it. So it's sort of its own independent thing. Mm. So much to explored. I mean, I'm just sitting here noodling around and realizing just how little I know about that style, and it's so useful. And even though I've been using it for years and years, it's it's very underutilized for ukulele stuff. People either pick, or they pinch, or they strum. That's like the 3 modes of the ukulele. But this is a fourth one that's also super super useful. So I think I'm going to end it there. That's about all I have to say about piano style. But if you have any questions throughout the course of the week or just about this in general, please jump on the Discord. Where's my link? Let me find my link. There's my link. Ta-da! Join us over there, and you can ask away with the questions, and yeah, keep the conversation going because a lot of times with the practice, you practice a little bit and something comes up, you realize that, oh, I wish I had asked that question. Please feel free to do so over there. Come check us out. New podcast went up this weekend on performing. Had a fun time making that one. Go check it out if you have any interest in showcasing a song or your abilities in front of other people. And if you just need something to listen to, I've some fun stories in there. But yeah, go check that out and please subscribe to the podcast every twice a month. Do episodes of that, and it's been a really fun outlet for me to kind of work through some of the learning processes that we all think about, more like the Zen philosophy of playing ukulele and playing music rather than like how to actually play things because there's no visual medium. But it's a lot of fun to think of things just in that kind of verbal way. And I hope you'll join me over there. Please subscribe and tell your friends about everything, all the things. Send them here, send them to the Discord, and yeah, I'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in, and practice that. I'll see you then. Okay, aloha.